Welcome back to One Comic Book a Day, where we're covering the first story in Superboy issue 19, The Death of Young Clark Kent. The Young is in there because there is a Death of Clark Kent story in the main Superman, or was it in Action Comics? I think it was probably in Superman comics. So it differentiates the title by putting the Young in there. And yeah, it is fair, he is younger there. Finally, they give Superboy something to hit. Unfortunately, he never actually punches the thing in question. You see, Superboy helps some scientists try to destroy some unbreakable crystal, but when he throws the crystal into the center of the Earth, into the core, though it looks more like hell by the flames, it turns into a large crystal snake that comes out of the ground and just becomes the unstoppable force. It moves forward, destroying everything in its wake. And all really Superboy is doing in the story is picking things up to get it out of its way instead of trying to punch it and see what happens. Kind of curious what would have happened. He would be the unmovable object. Very early on, very quickly, Clark Kent is in the way of this and is seemingly devoured or destroyed or run over by the snake creature. Of course, he survives because he is indeed Superboy. Bright blue costume, red cape. And, well, it can't destroy him. So there are actually two conflicts in this comic. How do we stop the crystal snake thing? And how do we get Clark Kent back to life? Because that's going to be a problem. Now, I'm a little more interested in the how do we bring the Clark Kent back to life portion of the story. Unfortunately, it's not what the comic cares about. The comic being only about 10 to 11 pages, maybe 12, doesn't have time to deal with both these things. So mostly it's just Superboy getting things out of the way of the crystal monster as he's trying to figure out how I'm going to deal with it. As for, well, how do we deal with Clark Kent? After Clark seemingly dies and people react by going, oh my god, it got Clark, it's very briefly brought up. In fact, there's a portion where the snake creature goes into the ocean where people think hopefully that's dealt with it. But this is only like a page and a half break to sort of deal with the emotional bit of, oh, Clark Kent died. And seemingly the only person who has died because they built him a statue. And though I do like that they actually do try to make this part of the story instead of just ignoring it till the last 2/3, which is kind of what almost happens, it doesn't work. They need to dictate more time to it. It needs to be equal in the story to stopping the snake monster. Mostly because the snake monster thing just becomes repetitive after a while, especially if he's not going to punch it. At best, he moves the pyramids of Giza out of way. So what happens is, well, he digs a hole and stuffs it down there. It goes right into the hole. As I said, it's just moving in a straight line. Though, didn't it get out of the core of the Earth? How's that going to stop it? Anyway, apparently there's a big crystal snake that's just continuing to move somewhere under the Earth's surface, which now thinking about it is a little disconcerting. And then the conflict with the whole idea that Clark Kent is dead and how do we bring back Clark Kent is not a conflict. We had one moment of like, oh, I'm kind of upset about this. Let me stew on this. And then as soon as he defeats that creature, we get the final few panels where they find Clark Kent in a ditch from the destruction, a hole. He's essentially just in a hole. He needs to actually do some work. He can't just immediately solve it. The conflict isn't a conflict if there is no difficulty in solving it. Fun little story is I lost like the last 2 minutes of this recording because I lost space. I didn't have enough space for it on what I was recording on yesterday. So I'm recording on something new today to finish this. But there isn't actually much left to say. All I really have to do is finish this. But I will sort of bring up the fact that I think the story would have been stronger if they had halved it. Maybe spend 50% of the story on stopping the crystal snake and 50% of the story on trying to figure out how he was going to explain how he was still alive. Specifically, Clark Kent was still alive. I think that would have worked a little bit better. There isn't even really a panel. I think the conflict with bringing Clark back would have worked a little better if they would have just done 1 or 2 panel of him being like, so how am I going to do this? Transition back. Just like a little bit of him having to think. There is close to that when we do that page in the middle of the story where they do try to put a little bit of an actual story to Clark Kent supposedly being dead with his statue there and his parents, Mom, Pa Kent, not quite named yet, though he has been referred to as Jonathan a few times, and Mary or Martha, but it's not consistent. You can't really call them by their names quite yet. are upset, even though they know he's alive. They're talking to him at that moment. There just needed to be a little more work. There's no reason to say kill him and for him to complain it's a problem without actually showing how it is a problem for him. Even just a small amount of him just kind of being, what am I going to do, would help with that. But I think you could tell a little bit more of a story where he's actually trying things, or you see the struggle of the plan. As it is, there is very little to it, and it's fascinating that that's what they go for the title, when it ends up being the part of the story that they seem to care the least about when it comes to stopping the Crystal Snake. Okay, that is it from Superboy issue 19 in the first story, The Death of Young Clark Kent. I remembered it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but Fridays is Bat Friday, where I cover Batman story, either Detective Comics or Batman. And until next time, let's ponder the question, whatever did happen to the boy of tomorrow? And I think it's time that we bring back this snake in a random issue of Superman or Action Comics. Or hell, we can have one of the Superman family fight this. What's Supergirl up to right now? Okay, have a great day.